Good afternoon. I'm delighted to be here. Last speaker of the day. It's not an easy task, but we'll try to keep you entertained and try to give you here the experiences I've had since 2010 when I first began to work with tablets. However, we will also talk about smartphones. We will talk a little bit about online and print. In today's environment, you cannot get up here and just talk about one platform. It's all about 4 platforms. So fasten your seatbelts, and we're going to deal with all 4 of the platforms with emphasis on the tablet. I always like to, this is sort of the professor in me, like to give you an idea of what we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about the essentials. 45 seconds on what is important to know today, whether you're a designer or a journalist or an editor. We're going to talk about the mobile, which is hot. We're going to talk about the tablet experience, storytelling across all of the platforms, and finally, we are going to talk about how you can create your tablet edition in a workshop setting and start with 0, and in 2 days, there you are, up and running with a tablet edition for your publication. What are the essentials? This, to me, is what is required to survive and to thrive in today's media world. And it deals more with the journalistic side of what we do than with the visual side. I begin with a definition of news that most journalism students globally always read in Journalism 101. It comes from a news writing book of 1917, and he said, news is any accurate fact that will interest a large number of readers, and of 2 stories, the accurate one that interests a greater number of people is a better one. That was and continues to be a good definition, but in 2013, is anything you know now that you did not know 15 minutes ago or 15 seconds ago. And notice that we have Twitter and Facebook very prominently displayed there. Because the way news travels today, news usually travels beginning on a smartphone. And then it goes into the social media, the masses get the news, and then they come to us, to the professional media, to get more on that. Journalists of a certain age, people in my age group, I've been in this business 41 years, they get together with me and they lament the fact that now news is gone from the newspapers and everybody is a journalist, everybody is a videographer, and so on. And I say there's nothing to lament, there's plenty to celebrate. Because the person out there with a phone witnessing an event can only take a picture or make a video. They are not journalists, they cannot take it beyond that. So, if we think food, what they do is to give you a little tapa, and then you come to the professional media for the big paella. That's how it works. So, we need to celebrate, but it does change the making of that paella, because most people come to you knowing about the event, and you as a designer, as a storyteller, you have to think in terms of, I know that you know, but I'm going to tell you more. And unfortunately, in many newsrooms, that's not the way it is. In many magazines and in many newspapers, we still have die-hard journalists with good intentions who believe that it's not news until they report it from the very beginning. This is where the conflict comes in. But this is how news travels today. We've had 3 events there: a massacre in Norway, the killing of bin Laden, the landing of the jet of this U.S. Airways in the Hudson. In all 3 of these cases, these news events were reported at least 90 seconds before they were reported by Reuters or AP. They were reported by the people who were there. And this is logical. And then it moved into all of these platforms. But exclusives and scoops are still possible. And recent events remind us. One of my clients is the South China Morning Post, which has been in the news lately because a whistleblower from America escaped onto Hong Kong. And he called them one night, as the editor tells me the story, and said, listen, I want to talk to you. I want to give you an interview. And he did. And this was happening at 8 o'clock at night, Hong Kong time. So one of the questions, and if you work in a publication, you know that this is an essential question for them, was, Okay, so we get this guy talking to us at 8 o'clock in the evening. Do we put it online immediately? Or do we save it, quote unquote, for the real newspaper at 6 o'clock in the morning? And it is a debate in every newsroom. Believe it or not, even in 2013, there are people out there who believe that you should save the story for the printed newspaper. Nonsense. You are for platforms. You are the online. You are the tablet. You are the phone. The moment you have stories, you put them out there. But they did it in a smart way. They had a full interview and they dropped 2 questions first at 9 p.m. At 10 p.m., 2 more. By the time 2 a.m. came, they were close to having the entire interview, and by then their website was inundated with, people reading the story from all over the world. But the next morning, the paper appears with this big headline, and they still managed to sell about 20% more copies of the newspaper in the streets, in spite of the fact that they were filtering the story online and on their tablet editions since the night before. Which goes to show that if you have a major news, if you have content that people are interested in, they are going to follow you through all of these platforms. And that was the case here. And some papers are even having fun. Here is Obama in Berlin visiting Angela Merkel. Bild Zeitung is a paper with an attitude. More print newspapers need to have an attitude. So their headline was "Kiss Me Angie." They were having trouble with that. Today, the Express of Washington, D.C., today's front page, had fun with this lost and found. So Rusty has been found, the other one is lost. Putting the 2 stories together, this is what you do when you really are having fun, even working in a printed newspaper.